Podcast. I'm Marvin, and my call sign is W0MET. Whether you're an experienced ham or just getting started, this podcast is for you. We're bringing you the latest topics of news, information, and all things amateur radio, each episode right here to this show. This is episode number 37. Subscribe wherever you get your podcast, and don't forget to hit that like button. Well, this is the recording date of Thursday, June 27th, and a little late getting this one out. Field day was kind of a precedence, taking the priority there. But I want to get into a couple things for this episode, and one of them being our main topic will be understanding your ham radio manual and why that matters. So hope you'll join me a few minutes here on this podcast as we talk about that a little bit and why I've kind of come to that conclusion. Well, one of the things I want to touch base first again, as I always do in the beginning of these podcasts, is a product I've recently purchased and found to be very useful as I've started to get into some of the kit building and some wireless electronics. And this is the Nico USB-C rechargeable soldering iron. Heats up pretty hot. I don't know the exact temperature off the top of my head on that one, but it is a really good soldering iron. It's got a really small tip that comes with it. Has a nice little stand it sits in. And I think you'd really like that if you're into doing any type of soldering or small kit building. And really started getting into some of this. Built a little clock, built an attenuator, and really have begun to really enjoy some of the fine art of being able to get in and do some of the soldering on some of these little boards and finding little projects online that are, sometimes relatively really inexpensive or cheap even. So just for practice kits to be able to play with and use. So I'm hoping that, if you haven't got into that before, you've never done that part of ham radio, I'm hoping that you will take some time and learn that. And that will be something you might want to dig into as part of the different aspects and many different elements of amateur radio. Next thing is just newsletter sign up. Don't forget to sign up for my newsletters. I've been getting them out about once a month. I'd like to do them every 2 weeks, but hopefully that will improve here as things slow down a little bit through the summer, which they usually do, as the beginning part of summer is always busy, so many things going on and whatnot. But please sign up for that. I'll try and get one out here in the next week or so. Usually I try to do them opposite weeks of the podcast. So again, thank you for signing up for those. I found lots of new subscribers are coming into that. So thank you for those who have joined. My trailer was absolutely fabulous for field day. It worked out very well. First, just from the standpoint of being a shelter during a severe thunderstorm, and kept us dry, and I was able to, utilize it fully for field day, and having an HF station set up in there. I had a 2-meter station, was able to do APRS, and was able to get the NOAA National Weather Service stations in there, as well as I was able to make contacts with just AHF. I had 2 different antennas to go off of. I had the 6 and 10 meter Momo beam from ARRL. I was trialing that one. And then the other one was a TN07 6 through 80 meter dipole that was going north and south. So obviously I was getting lobes to the east and west, and that worked out really well as well, and made quite a few contacts going that way. So the power source was pretty good. If you saw my after action field day report, if you're on my Patreon channel, I want to, I put it out there. And so I was able to figure out why my generator was causing issues with noise. Got to figure that out and what's going on with that. But it's in the after action report. And, we'll have to dig in a little bit more in a couple weekends here when I get some time and see where that noise was coming from when I was specifically more on 20 meters. So I'd like to check out some other bands and see how well it was doing, but I'm going to kind of replicate that just in my backyard or in my front yard where my trailer's at, and to see if I still get those type of noises. So we'll go from there. So, but it was a great setup. I know the club president from Hamden County Radio Association really was appreciative of it. A lot of people came and kind of toured it and took a look to see what its setup was. It was very simple. I had one light in the very top of the ceiling that came with a trailer. I had a switch that was completely battery powered, have enough solar to go through it. And I was able to operate my whole operation on a solar panel charging one battery, and then I was able to have the other batteries charged off starting at the beginning. So, and I was able to switch those out and still kept running and didn't hardly miss a beat. So, again, just an overall great operation for field day, and that trailer was invaluable for me this year. And speaking of those batteries, introducing Dakota Lithium, your ultimate outdoor power solution that's powered by the Ham Radio podcast. And hope that you'll take time to discover the ultimate outdoor power solution with Dakota Lithium. Our lithium-ion phosphate batteries deliver unbeatable performance and durability for all your adventures with high energy density and long life cycle. And you can take them with you wherever you go, from camping to off-grid living, built to withstand extreme conditions. And they have a awesome 11-year warranty to them. Upgrade your batteries to Dakota Lithium today and experience the difference you get with them. And you can see there, in my ham shack all over here too. So if you're watching this on YouTube, check out my link and my show notes. Always find that over on my Patreon page as well, and save 5%. It was a discount code. And speaking of my Patreon page, I'd like to thank all my new patrons that have come onto the channel. And I would really want to say thank you to them for helping support this and keep this mission alive, and help join this ham radio community with the Ham Radio Guy podcast, and keeping some of the things I'm doing alive and going, and really being a part of this community for amateur radio, and helping spread the message and really make a hopefully a better product for you guys to be able to listen and use. I've found more and more people continue to find me in my podcast, and I'm probably one of the few people actually producing a true podcast out there for amateur radio. So thank you again for all the patrons who've signed up. And if you haven't become a patron yet, go ahead and check out the Patreon page, patreon.com/the Ham Radio Guy. I still have an FTM 300 looking to give away to my one of my first 10 patrons who sign up. There's still time to get that in. And you can support me at 3 different levels. Just $1, I think it's $2 a month for technician, $3 a month for general, and $5 a month for the extra class with some extra benefits. I'll send you out a sticker, things like that. So feel free to look over there at patreon.com and look at my page. And hopefully you'll at least consider the free trial, if nothing else. And I do appreciate it. So with that, let's move into a little news this week. In our top news story this week on June 15th, 2024, a dozen New Hampshire amateur radio emergency service operators from Mount Washington Valley and Central New Hampshire groups, along with out-of-state volunteers, provided emergency radio communications at the Delta Dental Mount Washington Road Race. 1,400 participants braved the mountain's infamous wind chill and low visibility. We were there to keep our eyes open for any runners having physical difficulties, medical issues, said Skip Camjo, AC1LC, the ARRL New Hampshire Section Public Information Coordinator. You can count on having a good signal on Mount Washington. That's why the radio operators will be back for the August bike race, added Camjo. The Aries also helps prepare for ARRL Field Day, which was held this past weekend of June 22nd and 23rd, when over 35,000 radio amateur operators operate from remote locations. So, man, a little froggy this evening for some reason. So there was our first story. It was good. And our second story on June 5th, Isaac Stiles, KJ7FAY, and his 3-year-old son were involved in a boating accident when their canoe tipped over at Lost Dog Confluence to the Flaming George Reservoir. Stiles' wife, Kendall, made the emergency call to the Green River Fire Department after finding someone with a phone at nearby campsites. The fire crews located Stiles and his son on the opposite side of the river, and they were rescued by a Sweetwater County Sheriff's Department boat. Stiles' son then was transported by ambulance to a waiting area medical helicopter, which took him to the Primary Children's Hospital in Salt Lake City, With no cell phone service, Stiles used his mobile ham radio to reach Zach Gunyan, KE7WYG, who contacted Stiles' mother and relayed critical information. Gunyan also stayed on the phone to reassure Miss Stiles and later helped recover the boat and equipment. "This is why I got into ham radio, to just help one person in an emergency," said Gunyan. Stiles expressed immense gratitude for Gunyan's assistance, noting their growing friendship. Stiles' son is now out of the hospital and excited to make a full recovery. Gunyan, an ARRL member and president of the Sweetwater Amateur Radio Club, is also an emergency management volunteer with the Sweetwater County Sheriff's Office. Stiles, secretary of SARC, plans to recognize Gunyan for his efforts during the accident. And our final story is a good story as well, coming out of the Amateur Radio Newsline. Hobbyists will be glad to know that the U.S. military is making an effort to be more balloon-friendly. NORAD, the North American Aerospace Defense Command, has been making a concentrated effort to track and identify objects that might be at high-altitude weather, research, or hobbyist radio balloons, such as the ones launched by amateur radio clubs and school groups. NORAD is now studying numerous websites to determine as best when it can what balloons are flying over North America at any given time. U.S. fighter jets shot down 3 hobbyist balloons in 2023 after detecting and shooting down another high-altitude balloon, which the government department identified as spy balloons from China. Stephen Armstrong, NORAD's chief of strategic engagement, told the military website Task and Purpose that NORAD is now taking a closer look at raw radar returns to ensure more hobbyist balloons don't meet the same fate. NORAD now reaches out to hobbyist or researchers groups when it is practical to do so. "It seems to be working," Armstrong said that in April, NORAD confirmed that there was a hobbyist balloon that had been launched but concluded it did not pose a threat. All this news comes from Amateur Radio News with a release date of June 27th, 2024. And moving into our ham radio prep, segment B here. If you're looking to get your ham radio license or looking at getting an upgrade or learning more about HF operating, head over to Ham Radio Prep. Check out their multiple series of courses. Save 20% discount and on everything with code The Ham Radio Guy. And you can find that information in my show notes. Grab your smartphone or tablet and download their app, and it's free on iOS and Android. Thank them for helping sponsor this channel. So appreciate that. Club Gear Online. Check them out for all your POTUS swag or your summer ham radio gear. And check out recent items released from the Anderson Power Pole Dirty Fix Field Adapter. It's a power pole to a Waco connector. And hopefully I'll do a short video on that pretty quick here. So again, you can find links and all this in the show notes for description. If you have any questions or comments, please feel free to reach out to me at W0MET at The Ham Radio Guy. And we'll look forward to answering those comments back directly. Each and every time a patron reaches out to me or comments, I do try and reply directly as soon as possible, as soon as I see that message. So it should be good if you want to take a few minutes to do that. So anyway, I talked at the very beginning of the episode, we'll talk about understanding your ham radio manual and why it matters. And so I really want to get into that topic. So I'll move through some of those things fairly quickly today. But I know some of the podcasts have been a little longer, and I try and keep these to 30 minutes. And so, I want to be cognitive of that. It's great for a morning drive or afternoon ride home. And so I'm going to kind of call this one Mastering the Airwaves or Mastering the Manual. And, we're going to dive into a deeper topic about understanding your ham radio manual. Now, this might not sound glamorous to you or sound exciting, but trust me, it's essential and it's very important. And I can give some scenarios why personally that I have experienced and things that I have done. And again, this is always for a new person or somebody that's licensed. And that's why I do this podcast. And so I think you can all gain benefit from this and, learn from other people's mistakes is what we always say, right? So I'm hoping that this will save you a little bit. And it is time consuming to go through your manual. And I don't care if you have an ICOM 7300, a Yaesu FTDX 101, a Yaesu FTDX 10, an ICOM, handheld, the Kenwood TH75 or a FT70 from Yaesu. It doesn't really matter. Any handheld, you might have an FTM400 or an ICOM 2100. No matter what mobile HF rig handheld you have, you should really take the time to go through that manual. And let me give you probably 6-7 different things here to some concepts and elements of why I believe this is true. And so safety first. That's always the number one thing, right? So your ham radio isn't just a booklet. It's actually kind of a safety net. And it outlines crucial operating procedures sometimes. It might have some safety precautions in there. It might have some technical specifications. It could be about how you are taking some adapter and trying to, plug it into a power pole and do you have the right adapter to plug into the DC volt side if you're trying to do this over a power pole versus maybe plugging it into its 110 charger. So again, it has some of those things that can prevent accidents and ensure that, your radio operates at its finest. And so you want to make sure those things are important and your safety is taken care of and you don't, cause a fire or it may cause a spark of some reason, that you're, not getting an RF burn, that you are, it says connect your antenna to the radio, you don't want to be putting out those spurious emissions or, touching the antenna or the top of the SMA connector or BNC while it's trying to operate, right? So safety does matter and it's first. Number 2, optimize performance. I don't think there's anything better than optimizing the performance of your radio. And it gives you, it's kind of like driving into a city and you're trying to find your way through the city and you don't really know, it's a brand new city you're driving into. You're trying to get around to go to a certain location, maybe a hotel, maybe a tourist location of some sort. And, it's better if you have a map versus just trying to guess how you do that. Your manual is your roadmap to its radio's capabilities. It really teaches you how to optimize the performance of your radio, adjust the settings, you can troubleshoot it, and it, ensure that you get clear, reliable communications with it. It can really help you learn the features of that radio. And it really gives you what it's capable of doing. So if you want to be able to do a Wires X feature with your Yaesu radio, or you want to get in a D-Star, you want to know how to set up maybe something for doing a WinLink connection, that manual is a roadmap to get all that information and figure out how to navigate that. So I think that's number 2. Number 3, a legal compliance. Obviously, we have Part 97 rules, and we hope that all the radios that you are operating are in compliance with Part 97. And understanding your manual ensures you help understand those rules and that what they're required to fulfill on their half as a retailer, what's ICOM, Kenwood, Yaesu, whoever it might be, whether it's a Quansheng or a Baofeng or Radioati or Tidio Radio, whatever those other ones are, and that you're not operating without your frequency limits. Maybe it might tell you your power output regulations and, other legal parameters. Ignorance isn't an excuse. And so you really need to have a legal compliance in there as well. And it always has that jargon somewhere in the beginning or end of the manual. That information's in there, but it does help you kind of understand maybe what the legal power output of the radio is, something along those lines. And so you have the legal compliance. Number 4, technical specifications. Maybe you don't know what a word DN on the screen means. It might wonder what AMS means on some of the Yaesu radios, which I'm more familiar with. And so it will help break down some of that operating jargon and decipher some of those acronyms that you might find in there on the screen. You're not sure what it means. You might see maybe you didn't realize that was the GPS that was showing for something for APRS. So it really helps you understand those details and empowers you to make informed decisions and upgrades and really understand what your radio is telling you when it says high SWR maybe on the HF rig of some sort. So you might see PO or what does notch filter do on like an HF rig. So it really gives you some of those technical features and then things that in there, and really explains your radio in much more greater detail. And now some of the companies I've seen also have kind of a basic manual, and some of them have an advanced manual, and that can be very important as well. So, but it will break down that information. Operating procedures. Some of the radios will give you things like you might have operating etiquette, emergency protocols, things like that, but also might tell you how to handle different bands or modes, and tell you like how to operate a split on there, how to, again, maybe deal with some of those operating procedures that are dealing with filters, like NB, I'm drawing a blank what that says, Ralph, what that means, notch, noise blanker, thank you, drawing a blank in my mind, your DNR, things like that, your different amps, filters that or power preamps that you have in there. So, I mean, it tells you a lot of those things like that you might not know about, different modes and settings in there as well. So you have really kind of operating procedures that will be in the manual, and that will give you a much more greater detail. Most manuals, I end up going to them when I have troubleshooting issues. So, number 6, troubleshooting issues. If you have issues with your radio, it might tell you how to go back in and reset that radio. It might tell you how to deal with a certain light that comes on, or it might say, hey, this light comes on, you need to send this back to the factory. You have some type of issue with this. It might need to be reset at that point. So, I mean, there's definitely ways to do things like in troubleshooting like a pro, and really give you more details and fixes to your radio when it matters. And then number 7 is do-it-yourself repairs. And, some of them will tell you a schematic, and will give you, a way to give you some insights into fixing or repairing the radios, or when you need to call in the experts, when you need to send that back to the factory. And so, this helps you ensure that your equipment will last and perform reliably for you when you need it to. And so, that's really number 7 is do-it-yourself repairs and schematics, and knowing how you can replace a tube if it's something with a tube still. Can you take and replace a resistor, or add a resistor in? Do you need to solder something? Did you let the smoke out completely? So there's lots of things there that you can do in that manual. Now, so there has been some people I know in my previous club, and they did a handheld challenge. And that handheld challenge was basically, they went to the EMA on a Saturday morning, and they end up really testing individuals on how well they can manipulate their handheld, and do they have the right equipment with them when they need to use it. And so some of those things consisted of programming a frequency, adding a tone, being able to use DTMF tones, and deciding on getting a code out of that. And I don't really have the full details around that. I think KM4ACK did a video on this, and I will provide a link to that video in my show notes. But it really gave a much more greater detailed description of why it was important to know your handheld. Now, with my job currently, I'm in in the teaching field kind of, and I found that people will get a new radio, and they're not really reading the manual. They're just trying to figure it out on the fly, on the go. And I would say it's definitely in the interest of emergency, or just even be able to go down the road and program your mobile on the fly. Do you know how to go about doing that? How do you change the bands? What's the easiest way to go from a 2 meter side to the 440 if you need to change VFO, if you go into the VFO mode? or do you just have to keep hitting band to go to the different bands to get to that next band you want to go to if you have more than just 2 bands in your radio? So, I mean, it's one of the things I've had difficulty with my FTM 400 is being able to have to go through and rotate from 144 all the way through, go all the way to 440, keep rotating that dial until you get over to that point. Or can I just key it in on my handheld on the microphone? But really from a handheld perspective, knowing that you have features in there like different banks that you can use is always important. And, can you, if you have a Wires X, a Yaesu System Fusion, do you know how to program the extra channels that you can have up to 5 different channels in there for Fusion rooms? And so there's things like that I think does make a difference in knowing how to really be the one in charge of your radio, not letting your radio control you. You run that rig and you need to know it inside and out in everything you do. And my final story comes to this was my 705, and this is fairly new to me. I've used it literally twice in probably the last 6 months. And this is where my frustration, this is why I decided to go with this topic this time, was in my ICOM 705 this past couple days. I was using it and trying to connect my MacBook Air to that radio, and I was able to get that to work. It works in Rumlog. I can get the SDR control for ICOM to work with that radio. I've not got WSJTX to work with it, but it is a Mac 3 silicone chip, so could just be newer, could have an issue there, not sure yet on that one. But most of those programs, N3FJP, if you have WSJTX, Rumlog, you have to match the baud rate with the radio. And in that software, if it says you're at 4800, 9600, 38400, whatever 19200, whatever those various baud rates are, you got to make sure that matches in your radio. And most of those are pretty easy to go through and do. The ICOM 705 did not have that. It's kind of automatically built in, it automatically determines what it is from the software, and it goes to that. I spent more time and wasted more energy trying to find and figure that out. It frustrated the crap out of me. And not finding a lot of information online about it didn't, really ever really get to a true answer. But that's what I ended up coming to the conclusion with. And so that it automatically just kind of picks up whatever you're set in your software. That's what the radio's picking up. If you have a comment on this, please let me know. Email me at w0met@thehamradioguide.com. But I want to know, what type of challenges, what type of issues have you had with your radio that you wish you'd went back through the manual and got. Now, I will put a link in the video here. I'll do this. But there's a book from the ICOM 705. I got it sitting over here on the left of my desk. It's just across from me. I can't out of my reach, but it's basically a book that was put out just how to go through the 705 page by page. I've kind of started reading on it a little bit, but I've not fully been able to get through it yet. And so I will be diving deeper into that. In fact, I'm maybe on a plane ride on Friday here. I may spend 2 hours on the plane just trying to go through that book and read it as I'm flying and waiting to burn time in the airport. So anyway, again, my whole thing is know your manual, know your radio, and go through the book because it provides so many different things for you. Again, safety, optimizing performance, legal compliance, the technical specs, operating procedures, troubleshooting, and do-it-yourself type of items. So, there's a lot in there manual. There's a lot of information on the features and elements in these radios that we don't always use a lot. A lot of people didn't know in a recent session was that Yaesu System Fusion on like a FTM 70. I even had a group function within Yaesu. So you could, use that with if you had a group of people and you want to identify when they come into your reception area. It's a really cool feature. Maybe I'll try and explain that a little different in a different episode. But Anyway, it's got a lot of cool things, and you can literally do radio's IDs and see who's calling on the other end. And just a simplex mode, 146.52. You put in your call sign into your Yaesu system radios. It does the digital side on simplex, and you can see each other's call signs. And it's just one of the coolest things ever. So, but I really, again, hope you'll take time to understand your manuals with whatever radio you may have, or with whatever brand you have. Well, my conclusion here is that, understanding your ham radio manual isn't just about mastering the technology, but it's about mastering the communication, making sure you're effective and can have reliable communication when you need it. So whether you're a seasoned operator, again, or just starting out, make this your gateway into your radio success, and make sure that you are compliant in your radio operations. And, if you can understand your manual and your radio, you'll have a lot more fun when you're out using it than if you are sitting there trying to figure out why you can't program a certain frequency in there at the last minute, and you become really frustrated and say, this is a piece of crap radio. So I think understanding your manual is really key to unlocking your full potential of your ham radio experience. And I hope that you'll take this and be sincere in really understanding your manual. So enough preaching on that. I'm going to call that good for this week. I just want to say thank you again for those patrons that have subscribed to the channel. And if you're looking for all things ham radio, visit the Ham Radio Guy Patreon website over at patreon.com/the Ham Radio Guy. You'll stay up to date with all the latest podcast platforms, the latest trends and news in ham radio world. Connect with me on Twitter at the Ham Radio Guy, and join even more followers there, and stay up to date for more updates and engaging interaction. Don't miss out on the fun and knowledge sharing, and subscribe to the Ham Radio Guy podcast, our YouTube channel today. And I want to say thank you. Well, if you enjoyed this podcast, we'd appreciate if you'd become a subscriber wherever you get your podcast. You can rate it, review it, and go out to Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or just go old school and tell your friends and family and neighbors. Hell, anybody you might want to think, you might think would want to listen to this and might gain some knowledge and information. So hope you learned something this week as well that will help you in your ham radio operations. And if you have any questions or comments, please leave them in the comments, or email me again at w0met@thehamradioguy. As always, in the chair and on the air, I'm the Ham Radio Guy. I say 73, W0MET.